In a total surprise move and out of nowhere, Wizards of the Coast put out a new Unearthed Arcana on Tuesday to test an updated version of the Artificer class. I honestly don't think anyone saw this coming. Anyway, this news comes to the delight of many who were frustrated that the Artificer did not manage to make its way into the new player's handbook itself. But I think there were probably some good reasons for that, which we are going to be getting into shortly. For those that don't know what the Artificer is, it's a magical inventor / tinkerer type of class. It's a half-caster and has the ability to craft magical objects to boost itself and its party members. It's a class that possesses a lot of creative and powerful options, but it's just not one that we see getting talked about a whole lot. The biggest reason for that is simply because it was not part of the 2014 Player's Handbook either. In 5th edition, we saw the Artificer make its way into the game in Eberron Rising from the Last War, and then was largely reproduced and formalized in 2020 with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So now we have the 2024 Artificer, so let's take a look and see what some of the proposed changes offer. Now, bear in mind that it has been a while since we've done one of these, but this is Unearthed Arcana. It's playtest material and has not been finalized. Some things might be too powerful and some things might not be powerful enough, but in either case, the goal is to focus on the designs presented and determine if they work within the context of the game and the class, and then kind of work the numbers from there. So with all that said, let's take a look at the UA Artificer. This video will just cover the main class. I will have a second one going over all 4 of the subclasses later, but I just wanted to give the main class its own space. Quickly though, I do also want to give a shout out to all of my channel members, but especially Ford, my newest member, as well as Julian and Finiki in the Champion tier, and Jackal3 and Dill in the Hero tier. I couldn't do this without all your support, so thank you all so much. The first thing that stuck out to me, which may or may not be a big deal in your campaign, is that the new Artificer is not proficient with firearms. This is especially odd since it was an optional rule in 2014 and is now a core rule in 2024 with the new player's handbook, yet they didn't carry it forward. And even the artwork from the 2014 Artificer depicted one shooting a firearm. I know that there's many people with strong stances against firearms in their games, and that's cool. You do you. I just thought it was pertinent to bring it up. Starting at first level, we have Magical Tinkering, which has received a significant change from the 2014 version. The 2014 feature used to let you create some fairly mundane and largely inconsequential effects onto some objects. These were effects that felt not too dissimilar to the types of things that you could do with Druidcraft or Prestidigitation. Sure, they did things, but they were not all that impactful. Now though, Magical Tinkering allows the Artificer without the use of some other mundane item to just instantly conjure any of these items, most of which are typically found in adventuring gear and starting character equipment. The created item lasts for 1 hour, and you can do this an amount of times equal to your intelligence modifier. I'd say that as a comparison to the 2014 version of the feature, the new one is much better and much more interesting, but does come with a sizable caveat. Magical Tinkering now affords a player a lot of creativity in certain types of problem solving, which is fantastic. I love options that allow players to cobble up some wacky ideas in their heads and see if they can somehow make it work in practice. And this is exactly the kind of feature that allows those sorts of things to happen. Oh, you need to stick a couple of poles together to reach something or knock something that's far away? We got you. Or you need to write down some secret message and you want to ensure that it disappears within an hour? Conjuring up some parchment or paper is a great way to make sure that that happens. Need to set up a makeshift trap with a bucket and some ball bearings? You can do that too. There's a lot of fun ideas that are spawned from this kind of thing, and I'm totally here for it. To me though, the biggest quote-unquote problem I see with Magical Tinkering is just that it does have limited utility and not a lot of staying power as far as its lifespan goes. While yes, you obviously still can use it as you progress throughout the campaign, the reality though is that the likely value that this feature will return for the player will certainly diminish over time as characters become more capable and better spells become available. Again, that's certainly not to say that this will never be useful later on. It definitely can be, but you're gonna have to work a little bit harder and probably want to use it. And you might be thinking, well, it's a first level feature. Of course, it will naturally diminish in value over time. And to that, I would counter with Bardic Inspiration, Rage, Weapon Mastery, Favored Enemy, Innate Sorcery, Eldritch Invocations, Arcane Recovery. All of these are first level features too, and all of which are plenty useful throughout a campaign. Yes, Artificers also get spellcasting, but so do most of the other classes I just listed off too. I want to be clear, this is not a bad feature. I think it's really fun and interesting and has a lot of potential, but I think they could have pushed it a little bit farther. Moving on to spellcasting, not a whole lot has changed here. Probably the most significant thing is that Artificers get the same ability that Wizards have to replace a cantrip during a long rest, which I believe means that only the intelligence-based casters can do that. Who said int was useless anyway? Otherwise, yeah, this is largely the same. They're still a half caster, still require tools as your spellcasting focus and all that fun stuff. Next up at second level comes Replicate Magic Item, which is the replacement for the old Infuse item feature. Interestingly, Replicate Magic Item was actually one of the old infusion options from before. The end result of this feature, that being you've got some new magic items, will largely be the same as Infuse item was, but the exact mechanics for how it all works has changed a lot. On your class table, you will now see columns labeled plans known and magic items. Now, when you get this feature, you get to choose 4 plans that you know as shown on the magic item plans Artificer level 2+ table. Then, once you complete a long rest, you're able to create up to 2 different magic items, which increases as you gain levels. And each item you create must be of a different plan, unless it says so otherwise. The items last nearly permanently. They are treated as just normal magic items, but disappear in 1d4 days after you die. And in case you weren't sure, no, you don't need to be the only one that uses these items. You can absolutely pass them around and distribute them amongst your party. That is a main part of the power of this class. Anyway, so this is where things start to diverge from the old Infuse items feature. Before, even with Replicate Magic Item, you were limited to some very specific items. Now, this list does include many of those same items, but has expanded the list to also include any common magic item that is not a potion scroll or is cursed. The rarity of this option also increases as you gain levels as well, and we're going to see more of that soon. What is cool though is that many of the old infusions have actually just become new magic items in their own right, so they can be distributed even in games without an Artificer. I would imagine these will appear in the book where the Artificer is finally released though. Before we look at the rest of the features, I do want to look at how this feature in particular scales. This is where things start to get a little bit out of hand. Firstly, even just at second level, being able to magically create a +1 shield and give it to your paladin or something is very good. A +1 Wand of the War Mage, +1 weapons, this one feature at second level can create some incredible power that you would typically not amass until at least several levels later. And we're just getting started here. At 6th level, the feature upgrades and again provides plenty of great options to choose from. But unquestionably, the one that stands out is the ability to create an uncommon armor, wand, or weapon from the Dungeon Master's Guide that isn't a potion scroll or cursed. Gauntlets of Ogre Power, Headbands of Intellect, Adamantine Armor, these are all things that jump to mind and can be invaluable to any of your allies or yourself at this level. But probably the most insane choice are any of the Enspelled items. Whether it's armor, the staff, or the weapon, these on their own can provide up to 6 free spell slots per day to anyone. That's crazy. And you can make 3 of them. That's just so strong. At 10th level, you can now make 4 items, and your options expand to include wondrous uncommon items like Bracers of Archery or a Cloak of Protection. But then again, at level 14, with the ability to make 5 magic objects, your choices now include rare armor, rings, wands, weapons, or wondrous items. Our Enspelled items can now hold up to 6 3rd level spells every single day that have their own attack rolls and DCs. Here's the thing about this feature. It obviously unlocks an insane amount of power, and that doesn't actually need to be a bad thing. It might not be. But what it can do is create a situation where either the DM or the Artificer player feels encroached on. Part of the DM's role is to pace the game, and a big part of the way that that can be done is through delivery of magic items. Whether that's through quest rewards or availability of certain items in shops, the DM has a fairly large degree of control when it comes to the kinds of power that players can amass through items. The Artificer, though, completely circumvents that. And in a situation where the DM decides to limit what the Artificer player might be able to create, that can obviously feel bad too, so this can potentially feel like a lose-lose situation. Like I said though, this doesn't need to be a problem. If your group decides to allow use of the Artificer at all, I think it's just incredibly important to be aware of how the class has the potential, depending on the items crafted, to massively throw off the balance of the game into wildly unpredictable ways. That might sound fun to you, it kinda does to me, but it won't to everyone, so that certainly needs to be kept in mind. One final point about this feature that I want to make is that it has the potential to limit design space. Once the Artificer gets published, Wizards of the Coast are going to need to be extremely cautious about the types of common, uncommon, and rare magic items that they create and publish in future content, as there can always be the potential for an Artificer to create them and do some even more unanticipated things. Or maybe they just won't care and they'll just let DMs in each table decide how to balance their respective Artificers if they choose to use the class at all. This to me might be the biggest potential fault of this feature, the impact on future content. Alright, moving on. At level 3, Artificers gain their subclass or specialty, which we will again discuss in another video, but they also get another feature called the right tool for the job. It still mostly functions the same as it used to in that it can create a set of artisan's tools. However, it now adds it to your pool of things that you can create with magical tinkering, so it will disappear after an hour instead of whenever you use the feature again. At 6th level, Tool Expertise is gone and has been instead replaced with Magic Item Tinker. In addition to this giving you access to the level 6 plans, it also gives you a new sub-feature called Drain Magic Item. Drain Magic Item allows you to touch any of the items that you've created using your Replicate Magic Item feature and consume its magical energy to create a spell slot from it, the level of which is determined by the rarity of the item that you crafted. By the time that you're 6th level and you have this feature, that means that more often than not, you're going to be generating a 2nd level spell slot. You can only use this feature once per long rest, but hey, it just gives you yet another spell slot to use along with your Enspelled items from earlier. I think this is actually a very cool and flavorful feature for the class and can emphasize more of a transient use of the Replicate Magic Item feature. The downside though is that because of how good the items you can replicate are, this feature will probably rarely be used, which feels unfortunate because it is pretty sweet otherwise. It's just a victim of the design of Replicate Magic Item. The level 7 feature, Flash of Genius, has remained and has been improved significantly in that you now only need to use it when the ability check or saving throw has been failed, rather than just guessing. This is something I've touched on before and is a change that I am very happy to see. I know some people get all up in arms about how D&D players just don't want to make choices anymore, and as far as I'm concerned at least, that's not even close to the reality. We just want interesting choices, meaningful ones. Deciding whether or not to use a feature on a roll that may or may not have already succeeded is not an interesting choice. You either didn't need to use it and you feel stupid for wasting it, or you did need to use it and you feel stupid for not. That's not compelling decision making. What is interesting is knowing that a roll failed, but still not by how much, and then choosing whether to sink both a reaction and a feature use into trying to turn that thing into a success. At least then, even if it still doesn't work, you can feel good about trying, and if it does work, everyone feels great. Alright, I'm going to end my rant on this topic now. At level 10, Magic Item Adept grants access to the level 10 plans and allows the Artificer to attune up to 4 magic items at a time. Next, at 11th level comes the Spell Storing item, and wow, this feature got an incredible buff over the 2014 version. The functionality is the same. You touch a weapon or an item that you're using as a spellcasting focus, and can store a spell in that item that you can cast an amount of times equal to twice your intelligence modifier, which by this point in the game is almost certainly going to be +5, so that's 10 uses. Now, the crazy part is that it used to be limited to 1st and 2nd level spells. Now, it lets you store 3rd level spells. That means that this feature gives you access to up to 10 3rd level spell slots every single day. That's just ridiculous. And even more ridiculous is that you don't even need to be the one to use it. You can give it to an ally or your homunculus servant, which, side note, is actually now a 2nd level spell that both requires and consumes a gem or crystal worth 100 gold, so there's that. The item even uses your spellcasting ability modifier, which means you can give it to non-casters without issue and get 10 fireballs or 10 hypnotic patterns if you're an artillerist or an armorer, or whatever else every single day. It's absolutely unhinged. If they're going to allow 3rd level spell slots, this feature should almost certainly scale the amount of uses based on the spell level chosen. Maybe 2 times your intelligence modifier for 1st level spells, equal to your intelligence modifier for 2nd level spells, or half your intelligence modifier for 3rd level spells. I have no idea whether that's balanced or fun or fair or not. It's just the first thing that came to mind. Anyway, suffice it to say that the spell storing item is extremely powerful and probably needs a revisit. At 14th level, Magic Item Savant gives access to the level 14 table for items and allows the Artificer to attune up to 5 magic items, and at level 18, Magic Item Master ups that to 6 attunement slots. Finally, at level 20, we have the capstone Soul of Artifice. This one also got some big changes since 2014. Firstly, Cheat Death. This is a big improvement in 2 core ways. Now it rebounds you to 20 hit points instead of just 1, but more importantly, it no longer consumes your reaction to do this. You still disintegrate one of your replicated magic items, which means that you can now potentially do this up to 6 times, which is pretty great, but will still certainly be costing you a lot in terms of items. And then there's Magical Guidance, which now lets you, if you are attuned to a magic item, to add 1d6 to any ability check that you make. This is often just going to be much worse than the 2014 version, which worked on saving throws and gave you a +1 for each magic item you were attuned to. I feel like I'd be okay with keeping the roll of the d6, but I feel like it kind of should be expanded to ability checks or saving throws. Overall, the new Artificer is looking to be extremely powerful, much more so than it was before, and it was already a great class. The biggest issue I see with it is that it has the potential to very dramatically shift the balance of a campaign and alter typical play patterns and group dynamics in a very impactful way. And while that was partially true with the 2014 Artificer, it was to a smaller extent. I've been playing in another campaign on and off for a couple of years, and a friend of mine is playing an Artificer in it, and I never cease to be amazed about the ridiculous things that they come up with and can accomplish with the class, and I'm concerned that the new version may have overshot the mark a bit here. So let me know what you think about the revised Artificer in the comments below. Remember, it's all UA, so please leave your feedback. Check out some of my other D&D videos, but otherwise, take care.